Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. I'm in a fabulous mood today. I'm about to go on a vacation. A fabulous mood today. Post-draft vacation, Dad of the Year vacation.
That's right. Scott Lynn would be jealous of what you're pulling off here.
You should have seen what he texted me last night. It was disgusting.
The second you said that, it was going to be one way or the other.
I don't even know where he would have found this.
I don't know what you're talking about. Scott is so clean. I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, as you know, I have a teenage daughter.
Yes.
Teenage
She had
daughter.
her birthday, right?
Yesterday.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Alex.
Happy birthday. Great. Best 15-year-old you'll ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
And she, like every other girl in America, would like to see Taylor Swift. And I want to make that a reality because, you know what? I think that this is a historic event that's occurred. Like, I like Taylor Swift. I don't love Taylor. I like her, though, and I think she's really talented, and I think she's a great performer and all that stuff.
Come after Bram. He doesn't like Taylor.
No, I like her, and I would like to, I'd like to go see her, not for $8,000, like what some of these tickets were going for, but this tour that she started in America and is now going through a European thing,
and then coming back here,
coming back here. I think it's going to be remembered like Michael Jackson's tours. Like, it's that level of history.
Yeah, it's that level. It's the Beatles. It's Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. Like, it's the height of all of it. Yeah,
and, so it's one of those things where I want to make this happen. For her, for my son, for my wife, for me. Like, I want to make this happen. Like, because I just feel like this is one of those things you're going to tell your grandkids about. Like, I went to see Taylor Swift in the Eras tour.
Yeah, right.
Because I haven't seen anything like this in a very long time. It reminds me of Michael Jackson. Like, when he was touring the world and people were losing their minds, you couldn't get a ticket, and it was like you were seeing a god. And this is what it's similar to. It's impossible to get in these things. Everywhere she goes, she sells out overnight. So I got on every queue last fall when her tickets went on sale. Right. Couldn't get into anything. And then all her friends, like one friend got tickets to New York, one got them to Philly, another got one to some other place. And they all started going to all these other places. And then I got on all the international ones, and I'm just like, if I get any of these, I'll just go.
Yep.
And last fall, this happened 4 times. I got into the queue. I got to the checkout line. By the time I pushed purchase, gone.
Right.
And it happened so many times that I'm like, this sucks, because I thought I finally had them. One was in Switzerland, and one was in Lyon, and one was in London, and they just didn't happen, and then Paris popped up. Same thing happened. I get to the checkout part, and I'm like, not even like expecting it to go through, and I hit purchase, and it says complete, and sent me a receipt.
There you go.
And all of a sudden, I had 4 face value tickets to see her in France. So I got to go home.
Is the ultimate just get the tickets and figure it all out later. It's the ultimate when something is in demand like that for a concert that you just do.
Yeah, I mean, I bought these in October or whatever it was when they literally went on sale. And I got to go home. I was so happy. I got to go home that night, and I go, guess what? We're going to go see Taylor Swift in Paris.
It's a pretty pretty big statement there.
Yes. So Dad of the Year.
Was the freak out? Was there a freak out there?
Freak out.
Okay, all right, cool.
So she should have passed out, right?
Yeah.
My wife was like really psyched. Neither one of us have ever been to Paris, so that's another
nice.
thing.
Okay.
So that's really great. The only tricky part is we don't want her grades to be awful by doing this. And going away in the middle of a school year, every person we've told we're doing this, they're like, like she's going to get all D's now. And so we got ahead of this. Like, we told all of her teachers, my son's in elementary school, so he'll graduate. I'm not worried. This won't keep him out of Harvard. I'm not worried about it. But, like, with her, it does matter now. Yeah. So we have gotten on her about, you need to tell your teachers in January that you're doing this. So they know. And you need to be in touch with them that whatever you need to do,
take care of
just take care of it. We have 2 long plane rides. I'm sure there'll be a couple days we'll just be hanging out in the Airbnb. We were like, just make sure you take care of it so we don't come back and regret this.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, I think it's going to be awesome, and I can't wait. We're leaving, and we'll be gone for a week. So I won't be on next week. I'll be in France.
You're only...
Probably buying Archer a Wemby French jersey. He's already said he wants one.
Oh, okay. That's a good choice, actually.
But he wants the team he played for in France.
Yeah. Do you know where they're located?
No.
Okay. I was just going to say. No. They probably got a team store. That's all.
Yeah. We have one allocated boys' day, girls' day, where the girls are going to go do things that I do not want to do, like shopping.
Right.
And then me and Archer are going to go probably rent a motorcycle or something. And, and then he's like, he already said it to me because I really want to get a Wemby jersey of the team he played for in France. And I'm like, I bet we can find those. So we'll go do that.
The Metropolitans 92 team store.
It's a good name.
It does exist.
Yeah, of course it does.
Boutique Metropolitans 92.
Yeah.
I do not see a in person, but they do have a team store.
Okay.
So I'm sure they're around.
I'm sure there are sporting outlets. Like, he doesn't need to know this. We're in France. He doesn't need to know how legitimate the place is that we buy this. That's all.
You know how picky I am. So, I just have to
I
look it
know,
up.
but he's not. He's 11, and he's like, if he sees a store that sells jerseys and it happens to have that, he'll think it's legit.
That's fair.
So that's what we'll do. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm very excited. I'll be on vacation all next week, and we'll be in France. And hopefully Taylor Swift's concert will be everything it's ever lived up to. But what I'm really psyched about is I got this at a price because I know what some of my friends paid to go do this.
And in this
it's
country.
outrageous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Outrageous. So we actually got face value tickets. Granted, we paid a premium to go see her, but life experience. You get to go to Paris, France.
Here's what I would recommend for you, because I know your family doesn't really listen to the show live, but I would buy a shirt, just whatever shirt she wants, buy another version, another one, and put it away for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I also told Alex, I'm like, you got to get something that's written in French.
Yeah, of course. No. But
you have to.
But what I would do is I would dead stock it, because she's gonna you can give it to her 10 years later, and you're like, I saved this for 10 years, because by the time she's worn that one into the ground, you get to just regift it, and she'll love it.
The annoying part of the trip will also be this. So
listen,
as part of the pack, to buy these tickets, I was buying whatever I could get my hands on. And the ones that were available were labeled VIP.
Okay.
The seats aren't great, but it came with a merch package. I'm sure it's not.
I did this for the
great.
weekend at FedEx Field.
I'm sure the merch package is not going to be worth the time spent to go get it. But I just got an email about the merch package, and the email was, we highly advise you to come to the stadium at a different date than the show, because otherwise you're going to be in this crazy line to get this package. And so I'm going to take their advice and do that. So we're going to go to this stadium, get this merch package. It's going to be a disappointment, then go back. So that's going to be the one wasted few hours of the trip, I think.
Are you guys? Do you know the dates around it? Are you the first night or the second night?
I believe we're the first night of it, and the merch thing starts 2 days in advance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
where you can go, and then I'm also hoping, I'm sure all the other merch stores will be open. Just buy what you want now, so that we're not doing it the night of the.
Of course,
night of the concert. Just get it out of the way.
Yeah, of course.
Get it out of the way.
Right. Yeah.
So
no.
My daughter's psyched. She's been saving money for this. She already told me how much money she's bringing with her to this. I'm like, okay. I mean, your choice. Go ahead.
If there's a thing to do, it's this one. I mean,
it's this one.
I don't blame anyone for that. I mean,
it's this one. All right, so today will be my last show for a little while.
Yeah.
I'll be out for a week, and I'll be back.
I'll be filling in for you, by the way.
All right, very good. Let's see. All right, last night the Knicks knocked out Philadelphia, so that's done.
Bing bong.
That was a crazy game. Those last couple were nuts. The Knicks had them dead to rights the game before and blew it. And then last night, same thing happened. They had them dead to rights, and all of a sudden there was this crazy run in the last couple of minutes, and then the Knicks came through at the end. I actually felt good for Josh Hart, who kind of blew Game 5, that he hit the 3 at Game 6. And I watch the Knicks, and I go, God, they play hard. That's Thibodeau. They play hard. And Brunson, I see why they love him. He is tough. It's New York through and through. You can just see it. He sees that New York energy about him. He looks mad. When he's playing, he just looks mad. He's the anger of New York is coming out of him. And it's funny. I was talking to Archer last night. We were watching it because he had 40 points again or something. Mm-hmm. But he had shot the ball 30 times. And I was trying to, because he's 40 points. And I go, 30 shots.
That should have been Poole every night, but yeah.
30 shots, and he's like, so? And I'm like, 30 shots? How did he not end up with 40 points? That's volume shooting. Of course he's going to end up with a ton. Anyway, not that we're arguing over his value. His value is what it is, and he does have to be a scorer for them, because the bottom line is they don't have other ones that are obviously consistent scorers for them, which is what's going to make this next round really interesting. I don't think Indiana's that good, but Indiana could score a lot of points. Mm-hmm. So I think will the toughness and the rabid atmosphere overcome the fact that Indiana's probably a much better offensive team.
Right.
That's going to be interesting to see. And you'll probably see it early, games 1 and 2. If they don't like crack 100 or end up with like 103 or something like that, you're going to know it got to them.
Right.
But they're capable of putting up 120 plus, and the Knicks aren't. So I think this is a semi-interesting series. Semi-interesting because I think either one of them is losing to Boston is kind of how it's like.
No, I agree.
Either one of them is losing to Boston. It's just a matter of what style are we going to get. And at least if the Knicks play Boston, I think it's going to be a tough series. And if the Pacers play Boston, I feel like they're just going to get outscored.
Celtics
fans, that's all that's going to happen.
Celtics fans have to be jumping through hoops today of just
getting Philly out.
Yeah, looking at the road ahead.
Yeah, and Milwaukee getting out is good because
there's no
had they survived, it's possible Giannis would have come back,
that's right.
And that's a whole different thing.
Correct.
If he came back, so they're out. But the only two teams that look like they could beat them are gone.
Yeah, correct. So they're looking at it and going, "What stars do we have to run through?"
That's right.
Like Donovan Mitchell's the best player that's not on Boston right now. Left,
and they're having a hard.
They're
having a hard time getting rid of Play the Song.
Right.
They can't get Play the Song out.
And if that goes to Game 7, all bets are off. Like,
I mean, I really wish Don was the next opponent for the Knicks because I'd love to see him in the Garden. Because I actually think that would have been really interesting to see him in the Garden.
That's what I was telling you. I think that was the only chance to have a good matchup that was like interesting, but it wasn't going to break that way because something crazy would have to happen for that to happen.
I really, really, really want Reggie Miller and Spike Lee sitting next to each other courtside for this game. The theater of that would be amazing if they could pull that off because it would harken back to maybe the most famous series of all time even though because the Knicks they've won since the 70s. I don't buy them getting to the finals. However, like Indiana to me is a classic. They're an offensive team. This is all kind of new. They're going to play a tough team. I like the Knicks in the next series. It's hard to pick against them, but they probably will be a couple of games where Halliburton goes off or they score so many points the Knicks kind of can't keep up. But I feel like we're going to get a similar outcome here. Knicks in 6, maybe Knicks in 5. Yeah. That gets them to the Eastern Conference Final. Then they're going to feel like they're ready to do it. And if somehow Boston isn't there, they probably will get to the final. And if I assume Boston will be, they won't.
Right.
They can't score enough.
Correct.
I mean, they're fun, and I love the energy of them, and I'm actually glad they won. And I was pretty convinced going in last night. I'm like, Maxi's not doing that again. I love him. I think he's great, but he's not doing that again. And he didn't. Embiid, again, I don't want to hear any criticisms of him. Like, that dude was a warrior this series. Like, beyond a warrior this series. It is not his fault that they lost. He scored 50 in one game.
Right.
He scored, 40 last night. He's playing on a really bad knee and with Bell's palsy. I don't want to hear a thing about him. Like, he did everything within his power. So any criticism of him, I don't even want to hear it today. Like, it's not... Like, what do you want from him if it wasn't good enough what he did? His team lost. What do you want from him?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So... there's that. So they're out. Boston's loving life because they're staring at this going, we'll see you in the finals. See who we get.
The easiest road I've seen in recent memory.
At least it feels that way.
And the West is going to be
if they end up with the Magic, that's a joke.
Oh my God.
Okay, that is a joke if they end up with them. If they get Cleveland, I'll give Cleveland half a chance because they have a couple superstars on their team. So I'll give them half a chance at something like that.
The funny part, too, is what we just talked about there, too, with the road. It's the opposite in the West. The West is going to be a bloodbath. Like, whoever limps into the finals, you're probably going to be facing a Celtics team that 1-5, whoever they play in the Eastern Conference Final. So
let's see. So Milwaukee goes out. I haven't been keeping up with the career of Patrick Beverley, but apparently he's there. I saw the clip of him chucking the basketball at the fans. Yeah. I'm sure they didn't say something very nice to him.
You didn't hear about it?
They were saying Cancun. Do you believe that totally?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a bit.
But could he have heard a few other things maybe from other people? Like, there's a lot of people
but here's
now.
The thing.
They're once you get there. See, this is the mistake. Anytime the player gives them the time of day, that's when it ramps up.
The problem though,
I understand from his perspective, it's hard to tune all of it out.
This is pure. This is Commanders PTSD. This is pure spin zone though. That chant, that's what they're going to use because of what happened to the reporter afterwards. It's going to be he was shaken up because he got into an altercation with the fan. Shams doesn't tweet that out unless someone, unless it was Pat Bev directly or someone from the team went, hey, soften this because he was just pissed off after this interaction with this fan. That's not something that I would chuck a basketball into the stands for.
No.
But I think it's pure spin zone to kind of like make the excuse for what he did with the other ESPN reporter.
Right. So then he gets in the locker room and there's a scrum around him. And I'm not even sure if they were asking him about that or not. Whatever. But the team went out. And he turns to a reporter, ESPN reporter, and basically says, are you a subscriber of my podcast? And she says no. And then he says, you have to get out of here. I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
Which I don't even... What is your point?
Yeah, right.
I don't even understand what that means.
Correct. Yeah. Well, it's
why are you talking to anybody here then?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Take the fine.
Yeah, right.
Like what are you talking to anybody here for?
Yeah.
And then, then of course, like he doesn't know this because he doesn't clearly know her.
Right.
But as it turns out, she's been doing this for 40 years.
That's right. Right.
And all of the people who work with her at ESPN who have big social followings go, you know what, pal? You actually did this to the wrong person. That wasn't Indiana's local Channel 16
intern,
22-year-old intern who's scared of you. This woman actually has been in every locker room, in every scenario, and she's a true pro, and you really shouldn't have done. You shouldn't be doing that to anybody, but you really shouldn't have done it to her. She tweeted out today that he apologized to her.
Yeah, and she accepted it.
And she said that Milwaukee called her up and apologized to her. But in the end, like I saw Stephen A. make fun of him too, and I'm sitting there going, where does he get off even saying something like that?
I don't know. That's one.
Why are you here doing an interview at all with any of these people? So if I just said, yes, I am, even though I'd be lying to you, you would do an interview with me?
Right.
And why would that matter?
Yeah. It was one of the more ridiculous interactions I've seen in like modern times. I don't even know where.
I don't know why he was so pissed. No one's blaming him.
Yeah, of course.
That's the weirdest part. It's like, I could see Dame being like, just getting mad because like after all of that, finally getting somewhere and then going out in the first round, I could see where he'd be mad.
Right.
Patrick Beverley makes no difference whether they win or lose a series. Like it makes no difference. So like, what are you so mad about?
I would say this too. If the podcast was that amazing, he probably would have more subscribers. But I've listened to that one, and it's fine. It's nothing special.
I've seen him. He was on TV a couple times, and he's
doing because his podcast is with Barstool, so like he's got the TV part of the.
He has no problem saying stuff.
Yeah,
so like that's half the key to it. Like you got to be willing to kind of truth tell a little bit or give your opinions, and if you do, then you have half a shot. Like I really like the one that's going on now with Beadle, Chandler Parsons, and Lou Williams. I've seen a lot of clips from them, and often I like what they're talking about. They're very opinionated, but not, concocted opinionated. They're very opinionated. It's very good. I haven't heard Patrick Beverley's either, which means why he won't come on this show because I'm not a subscriber to his podcast. But it was one of those things where I'm like watching, like I watched this clip and I'm like, what's his point by doing that?
Yeah. I mean, it could have just been literally just to stir what up. I mean.
And it did.
I mean, we're talking about it right now.
And you know what? Everybody in America who's doing a show like this is talking about his podcast. So maybe he got exactly what he wanted. So maybe he's the evil genius who figured it out. And he's like, everybody will call me a jerk, but who cares? Now everybody knows I have a podcast.
Right.
And now everybody's going to tune in to hear what I have to say about it, right? Or that's the theory. The theory is, but what's the controversy? Your team went out and you're a non-factor on it. So, why would I tune in to hear your opinion of it? Who cares?
We're going to literally forget about it over the weekend.
Maybe he threw the basketball at the Pacers fans to set up, listen to my podcast.
Maybe.
Could be. Of which, at that point, if I was the owner of the Bucks, I'd be like, this guy's off the team because clearly he's got way too many other things.
I feel like he might be a rental, though, because I think they traded. I'm pretty sure they traded for him
that
this
sounds
season.
About right.
I'm pretty sure he was a trade deadline acquisition. He was just a 1-year deal.
I meant to do one more thing on Philly because I saw this tweet from somebody who's got a blue check mark, which means nothing anymore.
But I was going to say that means nothing.
Yeah. But clearly a Philly fan because Philly's in the @ name of it. But he said this, and this is all true. The process results are in. 13 first-round picks. Only 2 of them are still on the team. 5 second-round exits, no Eastern Conference final appearances, 2 first-round exits, 3 brutal Game 7 losses in the second round, 2 stars who quit on the team. All you got out of it was Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, who will probably be the only guys on the team in a few days. A decade of ineptitude, failure, and embarrassment.
Okay, how long did they suck, though? Like, they sucked for what?
They pulled the full-on, we're going to be terrible for 3 or 4 years.
So,
because Brett Brown was there for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then they let him coach the first, once Ben Simmons had come along and Embiid was there young, they gave him a chance. And then, unfortunately for Brett Brown, Ben Simmons lost it. And that kind of sent everything spiraling, which made them change the whole process part of it because he was supposed to be the answer to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he wasn't. This is Oklahoma City is proof that you can do this in basketball and have a really good team. Now, they haven't gone anywhere yet.
Sure.
All they've done so far is finally get to the playoffs after all that draft capital. They still have a lot left. After all that draft capital, we don't know how far they're going to go yet.
Right.
We haven't seen any of it yet. So we don't know what the results are yet. And you can maybe say the same, if they go out in the second round this year, everybody's going to say, listen, I know they were a 1 seed, but that was their first go, and they lost to Denver or whatever. And they're going to be like, it's okay. They do it 4 more times, and everyone will then change their mind and go, oh, that's why we tanked a million times, so we could just go to the second round. So history will answer the question about them. They're proof that you can do it.
Right.
I think Philly is, listen, I know they kept going out in the playoffs, but they are a consistent playoff team now. And they've had a few unusual things happen. Fultz turned out to be a bust for them. Simmons, I don't even know we know the whole story there. But clearly something went really wrong with him mentally before it went wrong physically for him. But clearly it did. Embiid turned out to be a star. Nerlens Noel turned out to be fine. Really a backup player more than anything. Who was the other one? Jahlil Okafor turned out to be whatever.
Yep.
So just having the picks doesn't mean you're going to pick the right people.
That's right.
Is what ended up happening here. Yet through all of that, the process got them to the point where they are extremely competitive every year. But the results are the results, and I don't know that it's hard not to judge them on it. They went through a period of time to be a dominant team. They haven't been anything close to that.
Sure.
They've been good now, but not that.
Yeah, and I would say this too, though. They also, because of Embiid, because of Simmons, they kind of signed the wrong player there. Simmons also threw a wrench of all wrench in their plans 3 or 4 years ago where they couldn't add that extra guy. They finally did.
But the amazing part was they traded him for Harden, which I at the time was I don't know what the Nets are thinking. This guy's broken goods. Harden's a valuable asset. Say what you want about him. But
I agree.
He's a valuable player. And he's reliable enough that you're not going to get that.
Yep.
There might be a couple nights where he's thinking about Rose Bar over the basketball game, but when he shows up and is a killer.
Sure.
And that's different than what Simmons was.
Right. So what I'm getting at there, though, is they could never, it was always bad timing with them. They couldn't add whoever that next star was. They were never going to get LeBron. They were never going to get Kawhi. They were never going to get Paul George. I mean, they made him.
Maybe.
Paul, but even then,
but then, they did sign Tobias Harris.
Right.
They spent a ton of money on him. He wasn't one of their draft picks.
Yeah.
He's turned out to be a third wheel at best. And now, he's a non-factor. What you saw with that team, and he should be volume scorer on the team like that. He wasn't. So he's non-factor in what they do. He'll probably end up somewhere else. So when they did go around the edges and actually spend money on something that wasn't directly through the process, that also didn't work out.
Right.
He turned out to be, he wasn't bad. He was just fine. And for $30 million a year, he needs to be better than fine.
Correct,
and that didn't work out for them. So the process gets a C minus D.
I think so. I say a solid C. I think C is fine.
Maybe. I mean, they haven't even really sniffed the finals. So the point of the process was to be a dominant team.
Right.
You can't pre-plan that out. And for all the reasons we talked about. But maybe. They're in the playoffs a lot. See, I think that's being undersold here. It's not like they picked all these guys and they all stink.
They lost to.
That's not what it is.
I just want to just go through it here. The opponents they lost to each year, we'll start off in 2017-18, lost to the Celtics, okay? Then they lost to the Raptors. Raptors ended up winning the title that year.
Raptors won the title.
18-19.
Yeah.
19-20, they lost in the first round. They got swept by the Celtics. I think that was when Embiid might have been hurt. Might have been.
Maybe.
After that, they beat the Wizards. Then they lost to the Hawks. Wasn't that 2021? That was
a joke we were in. Weren't we in the play-in thing and just got in?
That was you can say it now, peak Trae Young. So that was peak Trae Young that year. Then
they lost to them. Right. He beat the Knicks and then beat them,
exactly.
and everybody thought he's going to be the next big thing,
and
and he's turned out to be crazy.
Just a guy.
Just a guy who shoots from the logo for no good reason anymore.
Then in 22, beat the Raptors, then lost to the Heat in 6. Heat culture.
Right.
You're playing against the hardest. I'm not trying to make all the excuses in the world for them. That's the hardest playoff opponent without a star, but Jimmy's Jimmy.
I agree.
Then in 23, they swept the Nets, and then they lost to the Celtics, who were arguably the best team in the East last year. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like, it's not like they.
All right, I'll give him a C. And you know what? But it really,
you should beat one of them. I'm with you.
Here's the reality. Like Simmons let them down, right?
Yes.
But like Fultz turned out to be a bad pick. Okafor turned out to be a bad pick.
Fultz is actually pretty good with Orlando now. Like
he's okay.
Had they actually kind of waited on him, he might have been a little bit better.
Well, he showed up and then had he had an injury, and then all of a sudden he had the yip shooting the ball.
Yeah,
and he had a weird shooting form, and they were trying to get him to change his shooting form, and that got all weird. Tell the whole story. But that turned out to be a bad pick. Okafor turned out to be a bad pick. Noel turned out to be whatever, but he wasn't a starter. Like, so of the process thing where they ended up with a lot of these top 5 picks, 4 of them turned out to be nothing burgers on them.
Right.
1 turned out to be a superstar. Otherwise, this whole thing would look like terrible if it wasn't for him, honestly. All right, let me take a quick break. Dan Tordjman, my friend, colleague from America's Best Racing Next, will preview tomorrow's Kentucky Derby. Bram Washington Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Let me welcome in my friend, horse racing expert, Dan Tordjman from America's Best Racing on the eve of the Kentucky Derby. Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm good, but it's been way, way, way too long, my man. Good to hear your voice.
A lot to catch up on. Number one, our friend Stephen Panis, who works at ABR, sent me a link. I didn't realize you guys have got Jason Worth, our former national hero, into horse racing, and he has a stake in a Derby horse. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we brought on a bunch of people into horse racing on the ownership side through our Stake and Stardom program. Jason actually found horse racing on his own. He was told us he was hanging out at a bar a couple of years ago and ran into a couple of guys in horse racing who basically were like, "Hey, you should do this." And he was like, "Okay." And so what we've done is that we've linked up with him. We shot a lot of really cool video with him. Kind of getting into the sport, and a few weeks back when he was in Kentucky, his horse Dornock, who's running in the Kentucky Derby, when he was racing in his last prep race, we were there with him all day shooting video. Unfortunately, Dornock finished 4th that day, but still had enough points to qualify for the Derby. So yeah, Worth has been just unbelievable. I mean, he is so jazzed, and he's, think about it. He's been in the game for only a couple of years now, and he has a horse in the Kentucky Derby, which is pretty insane considering most people who've been in the game their entire lives never make it to this point.
Yeah.
And he's gotten there within a couple of years.
Yeah, the video's awesome. Did you get to know him at all? Did you work with him? Because he is a uniquely strange person. So I don't know if you had any experience with him.
So we've spoken over the phone. We had a couple of sort of production meetings, planning meetings and that sort of thing. He is. I mean, he's still very much a character. I think he has mellowed as he's entered his 40s and moved away from the spotlight of baseball and that pressure. But he's still a very intense guy. I mean, there's no question. He's extremely competitive, and that's what he said. Like the void that sort of is there for an athlete when you're done with sports, that sort of competitive, that need for competition. Horse racing, fills that for him, and it's given him this just incredible experience again in a short period of time, and he's hooked. Now, now that he's experienced this, regardless of what happens this weekend, he's here to stay.
All right, after this interview airs, I will tweet out the video for our fans who want to see this, because you'll be shocked how into it he is when you it's not a total just kind of whatever experience. He's really into the experience of being an owner and all of this. And he unfortunately got the rail in the Derby, which is not that he had the favorite coming in, but it's a death sentence. So I feel bad for Jason Worth. His first go here is probably not going to go very well.
Yeah, it's not an ideal trip. We can sort of dive into how they get out. I think one scenario has Dornock, his horse, going right, trying to go right for the lead at least, right? Because if he doesn't, he's going to get cut off at the rail, and then he could potentially be in for sort of a nightmare ride, getting shuffled back behind 19 other horses in the race. So yeah, he's got to go from the gate, and he's got to try to get to the front somehow.
Okay, I don't love him. I'm rooting for Worth, but I don't love him. Let me just throw out the ones that I like, and then you can tell me which ones you like, and we can kind of go from there. Sierra Leone is 3-1. I hate his draw. He's in the 2 spot. I saw somebody put out something like, no horse wearing number 2 has won this race in like a generation. It's a bad spot on the rail, but he's one of the favorites. So where are you on Sierra Leone?
Yeah, so Sierra Leone, my bigger issue with him is that the race that he won coming into the Derby, the Bluegrass Stakes, he had the perfect setup. They were going extremely fast up front. As the horses started to tire, Sierra Leone made this big sweeping move at the end and swept by them and won the race. He got a perfect setup. Now, the pace might again be fast in the Kentucky Derby, except instead of having to run by 9 horses, now he's got to run by 19 horses, and he's also going to be taking a lot of sort of, what we call kickback, right? Sort of the mud as he's sitting all the way in the back of the field for most of the race. He's taking all that kickback, and then as these horses are tiring, he now has to weave his way through 19 other horses. And if they don't go as fast as they did in that most recent race, can he still show that kind of closing kick and go by all of them? I don't know. I think it's stiffer competition. I think pace dynamics are a little different. And even though a lot of people say that the deep closers aren't hurt as much by a draw like the rail because he's going to drop back anyway, I think you still have to navigate a trip because you have all those horses kind of coming over at you and that sort of crush of horses going into that first turn at Churchill Downs. So you still are going to be taking a ton of pressure and potentially could get yourself into some trouble. So I'm not in love with him, not at that price. It's not to say he can't finish in the top 5.
Yeah.
I don't have him as a winner.
Okay. I haven't checked the weather. Is it going to be bad there tomorrow? Do you know?
It rained overnight. The track right now is wet and muddy, and the expectation is it's going to rain some more later today and into Saturday. And so there's a very good chance that the track will be sloppy. Okay.
All right. Well, then that being the case, then the one I like that's at a price is, you'll love this, Mystic Dan at number 3 at 20-1 with one of the few high speed ratings on the card and has done well in slop. And again, I don't love the horses that are this close to the rail, but the price is bringing me in. Where are you on Mystic Dan?
He's one who certainly moves up. You nailed it. If the track is indeed as sloppy as it seems, now you still have to watch how the races sort of play out throughout the day. So if you get a chance, I know a lot of people like to tune in only for the Kentucky Derby, but if you get a chance to tune in a couple hours ahead of time, watch some of the earlier races and see how the track is playing. Just because it's muddy doesn't necessarily mean that the horses on the, will be closing or might, you got to see. It depends if the track is sealed. I don't want to get into too deep into the weeds, but essentially it's more important sort of how the track is playing. And if a horse with his running style, coming from off the pace a little bit, and like he did in the big prep race that he won, where he kind of hugged the rail in the Southwest Stakes and then shot through the rail and won. If that style seems to be doing well, then he moves up. So I like him, and as you pointed out, 101 buyer speed figure in that race, the Southwest Stakes, the highest figure for any horse in the sloppy track. So I think he's interesting. Yeah, I think he's interesting too. The next one I like is Just a Touch, 8 horse, currently around 10-1, was in the race with Sierra Leone. What do you think of Just a Touch? Yeah, I like Just a Touch a lot. So remember, we talked about Sierra Leone sweeping by the entire field in the Bluegrass Stakes because they were going so fast up front. Just a Touch was up with the pace. And while all the other horses that were up with the pace started backing up and tiring and fading, Just a Touch stayed there and almost won. The only horse that got by him was Sierra Leone. But again, he was up with this really his 3rd career race. He stands to improve now going to his 4th career race. And he also has a couple of good races over a wet track. So Just a Touch, I really like. He's actually my second choice. Okay. As a favorite, I like Fierceness, the 17 horse. He's 5-2. I don't think we need to go into detail. He's the favorite and may go off as the favorite. So the only other one that I want to bring up that has kind of just caught my attention is the 19 Resilience. I don't know. There's something here.
he's got this kind of running style that looks like he could be dangerous. That's all. And he's going to be a big number, and he's on the outside. Everything's working against him. But there's something about him that has stood out to me, too.
Yeah, I know some data guys who were super into this horse. There are numbers to back up the fact that resilience is coming up and coming into a big race. My only hesitation with him is that, well, there's two actually. One is that the Wood Memorial, the race that he won prepping coming into the Kentucky Derby, has in recent years not been a race that has produced real good Kentucky Derby horses. And so typically, you're looking in some of these New York preps at sort of the second and third tier of horses coming into the Derby. So that's my hesitation there. Yeah, he looked great, but who did he beat? And my other thing with him is that there are a couple of horses in this race who beat him 2 races back in the Risen Star, including Sierra Leone, Track Phantom, and Catching Freedom, the 4-horse, who's actually my top selection. Okay.
All right. Give me your pick then. Who do you like? Who do you think is going to win the Kentucky Derby?
I really like Catching Freedom. So as I mentioned, 2 races back in the Risen Star, this is an off-the-pace horse. They were going really slow up front. He made this nice move, but you could tell he was kind of green, a little awkward in the lane. He was running on the wrong lead. Just didn't look entirely comfortable, and still managed to get up for third, only beaten by Track Phantom, who figures to be the speed in the Derby, and also Sierra Leone. And then he came back in the Louisiana Derby, and he made this incredible sweeping move, actually a closing move that I think was a lot better than what we saw from Sierra Leone in the Bluegrass Stakes to win the Louisiana Derby. So Catching Freedom for me, I think, is the best of the closers. The other thing I like about him, and, we all get into sort of, who are the jockeys and do they really have an effect? Flavien Prat, jockey who won the Kentucky Derby via disqualification a few years ago on a 60-something a one-shot named Country House. Flavien Prat has ridden the Kentucky Derby 6 times. He has hit the trifecta 5 of those 6 times.
Wow.
And that is absolutely insane, considering that every year there are somewhere between 18 and 20 horses in the Kentucky Derby. Nobody hits the trifecta 5 out of 6 years. So Flavien Prat is the rider you want in the Derby. Okay.
All right. I will take that into account. All right. You want to tell everybody where, if people want to tune in for the ABR programming of the Derby, where do they go?
Yeah, the best way to catch us, on social media, we're at ABR Live on X, and everywhere else we're at America's Best Racing. We've got teams on site behind the scenes with the horses, with the people. There's so many good human interest stories this year. The trainers, the jockeys. There's a 25-year-old jockey making his first start. They're really interesting, sort of ownership stories. You mentioned Jason Worth. There are others. So we're with those people. We're getting those stories. We're posting to our social channels. And, of course, you can always get all the handicapping info, the picks, the previews. There are other races all weekend where we've got winning picks on our website at americasbestracing.net. So for all those previews, go there. We've got it fully covered. So really excited for this weekend. Wish everyone a lot of luck playing from home.
Okay. I need to, before I let you go, you're a noted New York sports enthusiast. I have 2 quick questions for you. Are you delusionally buying the Knicks to go really far in the NBA playoffs?
Oh, is that just yes or no? I'm going to go no.
Okay.
I think it ends with Indiana.
Okay. Oh, really? Wow. See, I thought that's a pretty good draw for them. Although I agree, Indiana scores a lot. They're a high-scoring team. I think that's a problem for you guys. But I do think you probably enjoyed the Philly takeover, right? That had to be a proud New York moment for you.
I did. I loved seeing that. Except, the series we got to Game 6, I really just honestly wanted it to be over. The way Game 5 ended, took a part of me and just just crushed me. And I was just like, you know what? This is fun, but I'm good for this year.
Okay.
I'll come back in 25.
All right.
I'm done.
Last thing. What did you make of Mets $1 hot dog night?
Well, my wife is very, she's a Baltimore girl, and so she's got lots to root for this year with the O's. The rule in the house is whatever the team with the winning record gets the TV. So I'm a Mets fan. She's an O's fan. So I haven't watched many Mets games this year on the big TV in the house because the O's have been crushing it. But she loves hot dogs, and the one Mets game she was willing to go to was hot dog night. But unfortunately, I had a work commitment, and so we just ended up not going. And I don't know that she's going to forgive me. So I hope they bring that back soon. at the very least next year. But I hope they bring that back soon. That's awesome. I mean, we got to experience that.
Well, I was hoping you would have had in person witnessed the guy who was eating so many hot dogs and having them thrown at him that he had to be removed from the stadium.
I mean, that's like, second only to the guy. What was it? Was it the Yankees game a year or two ago? Didn't he put like a straw or something in the hot dog? What was the weird thing he did?
Yes. Yeah. Nobody really knows what that was about. It was like clearly he's got problems, and like
there's something about hot dogs that just makes people do weird things.
Yeah.
Like people just lose their minds when they have unfettered access to hot dogs.
Dan, it's always a pleasure. Enjoy the Derby tomorrow. I'll catch up with you before the Preakness. Thanks for coming on today.
That sounds great. Good luck, everyone.
All right, it's Dan Tordjman from America's Best Racing. Take a quick break. Brittany Radcliffe from the Washington Spirit will join us next after her 2-goal performance the other night in a win over Chicago. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Let's welcome in Brittany Radcliffe of the Washington Spirit. 2 goals the other night in the 5th win in 6 matches for the Spirit. She scored twice in a 4-2 win over Chicago. Brittany, great to have you here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
You know, the first goal that you scored the other night, come on, does it get any better than that? Short side, off the post. Have you scored a more beautiful goal in your career? Give me a break.
It's funny, when it hit off the post, I was like, oh, no, this isn't going in. And then I saw it hit the side netting, and I was like, oh, my God, it went in. I was so excited. I was like, wow.
And then, what was it? 3 minutes later, you and Croy Bethune connect again for a second goal. Could you kind of take me through that one as well?
Yeah, both of the goals were similar in the sense that like Croy is such good with the ball, and like not only did the pass and the way to absolutely perfect. Specifically talking about the second pass, like just threaded it with the outside of her left foot. Wasn't too hard, wasn't too soft, and just made it really easy for me. She's such a good player, and those 2 assists were like, again, made my job a lot easier. So credit to her for sure.
Brittany, like you've been in the league, 8 years now, something like that. She's new to all of this. Seeing that type of chemistry between 2 players, you're coming off the bench, this is happening. It's really amazing, like to see that between 2 players at such different experience levels.
Yeah, I think also like it's a testament to a team as a whole, how we practice, how we play, how we get along on the field, how we get along off the field. I think we all work really well together, Croy, myself, and honestly, like all 20 of us. I think you can see that chemistry into the field, from the goalkeepers back line to the midfield to the front line. We work really well together, and it's because I think we practice so hard, and we really work on the things and doing the things that make sense. And so it's been great. It's been great to see us get the results that we worked hard for. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but it's been really great to see us build that chemistry and just each game, like just keep improving and improving.
What do you think the secret is here early to the success of the team? I mean, you signed here. You've been around the block. This is a very young team, a very new team, but you all seem to have come together here very quickly early in the season.
We have new players, we have older players who, and I think because we're all so different, we all get along really well, and we're really like thought into the style that we want to play, the culture we want to build here. And so just buying in, I think, is really important to us.
What was important for you to sign as a free agent here?
Yeah, as a free agent. So obviously I'm from New Jersey. I played my club soccer actually in Baltimore, did Maryland ODP.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with Virginia. So this area had my heart. And then like the first few days I got here, it was like just the amount of support we have, and not just the support and the numbers, but like the people here. The people here are so kind. They're so helpful. They really care about us as players. They really care about like women's sports. And then been here for a few months now. I'm just really happy, and it's great to see what the Spirit is doing.
Back on the field, so you have 3 goals this year off the bench late. The team has scored 5 in the final 15 minutes of matches this year. What do you attribute the kind of the late game ability to score as a whole?
Yeah, I think for me, I feel like if we we're in the first 15 minutes or score in the last 15 minutes doesn't really matter to me, as long as we get the results. And for us, it's starting the game, figuring out, like, getting settled in, and figuring out what we need to, and then by the end of the game, hopefully we have those adjustments like in. I'm not sure what the secret is, but I think it just comes with like playing the game, getting used to the chemistry, and just working hard until the final whistle. Because in the last 15 minutes are the most important. That's where games are won and lost. So I think it's great for us to just play to the final whistle and just continue to work on the things we need to work on and just make adjustments throughout the game.
Okay, last thing. You guys are on this road trip stretch where you're going to be away for a couple of weeks, and it's shortened schedule. You played Friday, then you played Wednesday. You're going to play this weekend. You're going to stay on the road. How is the team kind of thinking about being on the road in this kind of tight schedule that you have?
Yeah, it's funny. We actually all together, like rolling out and just like stretching and stuff, and it's kind of nice. Like, I think people think of road trips as like, oh, it's on the road, and whether we're home or away, we're still going to perform and prepare as we would no matter what. But for me, I'm kind of enjoying this road trip to get to just be together as a team. I feel like when we're home, everyone does their own thing. They have their routines. But being on this long road trip, I think it'll be good for us as a team to continue to build our culture, build our team chemistry. So I'm actually looking forward to it. Obviously, it's a grind, and 3 games and however many games is going to be tough physically. But in terms of off the field, I'm excited to just get to spend time with my teammates.
Brittany, good luck this weekend against Portland. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
All right, it's Brittany Radcliffe. The Spirit coming off a 4-2 win over the Chicago Red Stars. Next up for them, Portland Thorns tomorrow night, 10 p.m. You can catch that on ION. Next home game, Saturday, May 18th against Angel City FC. You can get your tickets at WashingtonSpirit.com/tickets. Update on Patrick Beverley very quickly. ESPN put out a statement that he's not allowed to come on their network any longer, that there's no more appearances for him off of him just being outwardly rude to one of their producers. And apparently he's been doing this all year to people. If they come up to him and talk to him, he says, I want to know if you subscribe to my podcast, and then won't talk to them if they say no, which I still kind of don't get, unless it's just a way to get his podcast out there, because it becomes a controversy by saying that. Yeah. Which I guess it served its purpose. Here we are again talking about it. But I do like that ESPN put their foot down and they're like, you know what? We don't need you on our air anymore if this is what you're going to do.
Yeah, what I don't actually really understand is it's not like this was a series they lost with Giannis and Dame. He didn't need to make an excuse. Like, everyone knew why they lost. Yeah. Everyone was kind of accepting of it as well. So, yeah, it was just weird.
It was weird. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, Shawne Merriman next hour is going to join us to pump up his new app and also talk about Jaden Daniels, who I want to get into next. Kime had a really good piece about the decision to draft him. And you got to hear from Mitch Rales, who did a podcast and talked about what's coming. And I think it's something you're to be very interested in. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Shawne Merriman's going to join us in about 20 minutes. We'll talk to him about his new pursuits. You showed me him wrestling AJ Francis recently.
Oh, no. He was going to go after AJ. Because AJ's a bad guy in TNA.
Right.
And they were kind of doing a standoff, and then AJ's opponent, Merriman, got in the ring and then beat up his opponent. So Merriman heel turned, actually.
Oh, okay. And is he a wrestler, Merriman? Has he done
He's done stuff before. Yeah. Not like WWE, but like he's been involved with promotions. He's involved with TNA. So I think you got to ask him, like, what's the Terps? Is this the Terps tag team or something going on there?
Terps tag team. Bring out Loxley, baby. I want Loxley to be the evil manager. He wears a robe. What the whole thing?
A robe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, because like, what else are you gonna wear?
No, you wear a black on black suit. That's what all the managers wear. You get a little Paul Bearer Undertaker style there, I think.
Phrygian and bring Phrygian out.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Yeah. That'd be incredible.
He looks like a mob boss a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Put a bunch of rings on, some chains. I think Fridge would look great.
Chains on Fridge would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll ask him about that, and then we're going to talk football, which I'll get to now. It's been a week plus. We have our quarterback. A lot of stuff's been written about him, which I'll get to in a moment. But I want to play this bite from Mitch Rales first, one of the owners, who revealed in a surprised anybody found this, but they did.
The Art of Investing podcast.
It's called The Art of Investing, and I guess in it, he started talking about the team and some plans for the team and said this on it.
But more importantly, we need to cultivate the next generation of fans. I have this vision where every, call it third or fourth grader, should come to a Hall of Fame that we're going to build, that will become part of our stadium complex or part of our new practice facilities. We're not quite sure where we want to do that yet. But the Commanders should pay for the transportation and the teachers and the lunch that's necessary for any kid in the 3rd or 4th grade within 100 miles of the stadium to come to this Hall of Fame and see the history of the team. And if it's at the stadium, walk out onto the field and look up at the mass around and daydream a little bit about coming to a ball game and then leave with a hat and T-shirt, compliments of the Commanders. And hopefully we build fans for life.
How about that idea?
I mean, it's so simple. I've screamed about this for years that something like this should be happening, but of course.
You have by the time we get the new stadium, this will be nearly a 100-year-old franchise.
Yep.
It is one of the few that will claim that. So it's a landmark tentpole franchise of the NFL, which is why I think there is sincere effort from the league to ensure its stability, which is why they got involved with the former owner, why they got involved with the minority owners, why they got involved to improve whatever the stadium's called now, why they're trying to actively get involved to potentially bring it back to RFK. This team matters. And I agree with this. The one thing I would push back on is like, you don't put that at the practice facility because that's not the place for that to be, especially if it's going to be out in Ashburn. But I agree with this idea of at the stadium
that's what
that there's some adjacent. Well, you said maybe there or maybe the practice facility, which I was like, I don't know if that's the place for that. Do you want 4th graders there every day, constantly?
Right.
No, you don't. And plus it'll be out of the way. And this whole idea of walk out on the field, run around a little bit, daydream about what it's like to be at one of these games, maybe play for them one day, like that type of stuff. It only happens if you expose them to this. The 49ers have a thing. They have a STEM school at Levi Stadium. And so they've done this for years with kids where they bring them in and they're doing learning. This is different than what he's talking about, but they've done this. But part of it was we want to build a new class of fandom amongst our team. Sure. What better way to do that than to show them our facilities, learn about the history, show them all the pictures of Joe Montana and John Brody and Jerry Rice and all the great years that the 49ers had, put a hat on their head, and they're going to love the team. Yep. That's the goal. Right. And recapturing the youth, to me, is a huge priority for this organization. Like, my generation loves them and will love them forever because they won a ton. They just won a ton. Like, I grew up with them winners. Like, I was very lucky. Like, that's why I love them. Like, I grew up and I saw what they did in the city and I saw what it meant to everybody. And, there also wasn't some things like a baseball team here. Like, there's some things that weren't happening here. But, like, they're the pulse. I still think they are sporting-wise. I think they're the pulse of the town. A little differently. There's a lot of options now that are different, but the Redskins were the pulse of the town. And they also won all the time. From the early 70s into the 80s and then into the 90s, they had a 18 to 20-year run where they were at some points dominant and at other points extremely competitive. And they won over the hearts of everybody. And it's easy for me to sit there and look back at the last 20, 25 years and go, it'll turn around. Your generation's different.
Yep.
So you're not the lost generation, but we need to convince you to stick around generation,
so
I think.
I would say this.
Because you're adults now. So this is different than what he's talking about.
So I would say as like a little bit older of a millennial, like mid-30s over here, I think what happened is it was an easy carryover for my parents to say like, hey, this is why we love this team.
Yeah.
But the main problem was like my literal parents that at some point there was a breaking point with Snyder. And so there's this weird transition of like, you guys finally kind of, I don't want to say gave up, but said, I don't care about this as much as I used to. Yet I was raised to be like, this is your team. This is the lifeblood of the city. You don't ever just let that go. Not to mention, I think for people my age as well, the NFL is the lifeblood of the sports world. I mean, if you follow sports, people follow their local NFL team. So it's hard to look away. You can't just sever that tie. And so I think what it really is the lost generation is the people that are my age having kids, because I've heard so many stories of, he's a Ravens fan or she's a Ravens fan because we basically said, we're not going to force you to be a Commanders fan. Like, that's actually the generation that's lost. I think my generation's probably 50-50. And watch, they go and start, like, I always joke about it.
Jaden Daniels becomes a top 5 quarterback. People will be back on board so fast.
I always joke about this. The funniest part about the Zorn era was when he went 6-2, you would have thought we were back in the 80s, how much Redskins gear you saw. And that was just a 6-2 start.
Or RG3's first
of
half of RG3's rookie season.
Right, exactly. And so I always point to those where sometimes it was almost like detrimental with the RG3 stuff because it was like Lucy pulling the football back. You were thinking you were back, and then, of course, the worst thing ever happens after that season. He's done, essentially, right? Yeah. And so I think some of that stuff did more harm than good by bringing people back and then going, I'm so done with this franchise now, right? But I think it's the generation below me that is kind of the lost one because they don't know any history. Like, I've talked to you about this. When they have to do these alumni, days, and they go through the 2010s type players, and there's like 4 of them, because of just how it's not the players, it's just how bad the rosters were. They were just so forgettable, and that's where it's really lost, I think, on this fan base is how who are people's favorite players on those years. I mean, there's like 2 of them. It's like Ryan Kerrigan and Trent Williams. Those are the main guys, right? And so I think that's where they really have a disconnect here is you didn't get those players out in the community enough or keep guys around because you just weren't that good. That's where it's falling for me.
I do like that he's openly talking about we need to really reach out to young people and go,
right.
Listen, we want you to be part of this. And they can't control what's going to happen on the field. They're going to put their best foot forward and they're going to hope. And I don't believe they're going to be a dysfunctional organization in the fashion that I experienced for a very long time. But, until we get going here, it's hard to know, what's going to happen. And then it's sports. You don't know. Like we were just talking about last hour, how Josh Harris was the owner of the team. That's the process. Mm-hmm. The process has not ended up with Philadelphia being any kind of dominant force. And in fact, haven't even reached an Eastern Conference Finals through all of that. And, we're not doing that now. Like that's not what this team is doing. But there's no promise of even with less dysfunction, which I'd have to ask Philadelphia people, how do they feel about his ownership? But I do feel like there was a direction. There seems to be this idea of we're going to try to build something here. There's the potholes of all the things that happen in the course of owning, a sports team. They didn't know Ben Simmons was going to ended up happening what happened with him. Injuries occur. All sorts of things happen. It's professional sports. But there's a steadiness to it. And but the results are the results. And today, I'm sure there's a lot of people in Philadelphia screaming and yelling about how they never amount to anything. They never got where they wanted to get to. What was that all for? Here we are. MB's getting old now, and we have nothing to show for it. They're not even sniffing championships, things like that. I'm sure they're talking about it. We don't know until they start performing together and when things get tough. It's all rosy here with this new front office and a new coaching staff and this new quarterback and a new roster. Well, they haven't lost to the Cowboys 31-10 yet. And we don't know. We don't know what the reaction's going to be, how they're going to react to all of that. We're going to find out. But the whole idea of just getting everybody back on board on something to root for, I think really matters here. And they've gone out of their way to showcase this team matters, this community matters, this team matters to this community. Let's reconnect all of that into one place. And to have a Hall of Fame makes all the sense in the world to me. And I felt like they should have done this years ago. Snyder could have done this years ago. They have so much history here with so many great players and so many great moments and so much access to these alumni that actually really want to be part of this. This is one of the other things. They're reconnecting the alumni, which is a big deal. Snyder had turned them off in ways that I almost unfathomably turned them off, throughout the years that really, I think, cascaded when they changed the name. And then some of them just felt disassociated by the whole thing. Yeah. But it wasn't, their disassociation wasn't just because they changed the name. They were fed up with the way things had been going for a very long time. And I think it was just the tipping point of, well, it's just not even me anymore. At least all those years, Jake and Riggo and those guys would be like, listen, we're Redskins, we'll always be Redskins. Once they weren't the Redskins anymore, it was the tipping point of saying well, now I'm not even associated with this thing anymore. And I don't think it was this one moment. It was years of moments where they felt disassociated. This ownership group has gone out of their way to try to get the alumni back, and they're doing a good job with that. This idea of we need to engage young people now to make them understand what the history is and what the future is, and get them back on board, I think, is a very smart way to think about rebuilding everything here.
To the point on Snyder, too, what I actually think in these last, we'll call it year and a half, since basically the team went for sale, and then we've heard what they've done, right? One of them is just, I think the funniest one was basic upgrades at FedEx Field that you're not even going to notice because the infrastructure's so bad, right?
Yeah, I can tell you stories.
Right. Yeah. Of course. And
even things that when I was told these things, I went, wow. Because they were we were shocked at how bad the infrastructure was.
And so what I actually think that kind of bled through to me as someone who's a fan and a season ticket holder, and, my parents used to have season tickets, was I get FedEx Field was bad. Dan wasn't, the builder of it, though. He inherited it. But what happened and what I've come to terms with over the last year and a half of how dilapidated that stadium became, and then you didn't even really try to make it kind of reflect the history. Like, I kind of joked about it. You know, I went to an Orioles game last year and I had to park pretty much up against the Ravens stadium because I got there late or whatever, right? But I look over there and there's a statue of Ray Lewis and I go, this stadium's been here for less than 20 years or 20 years-ish, and they have a statue out front, and we have all this history, and you don't have a statue of Joe Gibbs out in front somewhere? Like just the little things that make historic franchises historic, you just completely ignored for this stadium. And I get it. You didn't like it, but you could move the statue to wherever the new stadium's going to be, or have this rollout of, you should have Riggo doing, you know, the Super Bowl run. You should have a statue of that out in front. Like, how there isn't more honoring the legends of some of the franchise, it's actually baffling to me.
You would think they were an expansion franchise. When
agree.
you go to, and I will give Jason and those credit for, in recent years, they've gone out of their way to make it feel more like home and add DC flavor to it.
Right.
When it comes to food, some of the artwork that's happened in the concourses, they've gone out of their way.
Food trucks there now too every Sunday.
And then they wisely, towards the end of Snyder's tenure, they named a concourse after Bobby Mitchell. They named an area after Joe Gibbs. I've been advocating for years, like, put Frank, Sonny, and Sam in the background of our booth. That is part of our history here. You know, like, I'm not embarrassed by it. I embrace that. Like, this is the greatness of our franchise. Let's showcase all of it. Do an installation of the Hogs. Do an installation of the Fun Bunch. Do an installation of each Super Bowl victory. Go back to the good old days and walk you down, you know, show these highlights of Sammy Baugh. They're outrageous. Like, show these black and white videos. This is what this franchise is. They're a tentpole NFL franchise. Expose it to everybody. And they haven't done that. You walk into that stadium, and you would have thought you've walked into the Marlins stadium, like as if nothing has happened here.
And that's what I guess I'm getting at is Snyder inherited the stadium, but like, you know, you're the owner. You could have done anything to jazz it up a little bit.
You want to see a good version of this? Go see the new Yankee Stadium. Like they took a lot of the architecture, and so they kept kind of the architecture, but it's all modern. But you walk in there, and it's Monument Park is here, and there's this installation of Babe Ruth there, and there's this Lou Gehrig thing over here. They lean into the fact that they're important. Right. And that's what I think this team needs to do, is lean into their importance in the history of the NFL to remind older fans, middle-aged fans who haven't seen much from them and dysfunction, and remind them what this is and what it can mean, and more specifically, younger fans. Like, if they didn't lose me over Snyder and people my age, they're never going to lose me, right? Because, like, I'm the one who kept just saying, guys, it was so good here, it's impossible to explain to you, you know, like, what it's like. And hopefully one day it'll be back there again. There's a lot of hope in this group that they're going to be able to rekindle that. I don't want to put that pressure on them because it depends on what happens on the field, and so much needs to go right. Like, I love Jaden Daniels. I think he's an incredible prospect. But I don't want to put this pressure on him like he's some kind of savior here. Right. I watch tape of him and I go, he might be Lamar Jackson. He might be Justin Herbert. He might be a combination of both of them. And if he is, we have a top 5 quarterback. But saying that out loud is so unfair, because there's just optimism and hope on him. Because I look at it, and then I look at the owners and I go, I know how much they care. I can just tell. They walked in the door. They care so much to make it better. But it doesn't mean they're going to win. It doesn't. And I'm hoping they're going to win.
I think what I would also do is make sure you get those shots of the crowd on both RFK and FedEx and say, here's what happens when this team is successful. There's no bunch of Eagles fans in the crowd.
That's right.
Every seat is filled. People are all together. Like, I think that's the one thing that was kind of lost over the last 20 plus years was when this team wins, this whole city comes together unlike any other team can unite them. Like, we saw bits of it with when the Caps and the Wizards won, right? Where, you know, the parades were really, really great. But as you know, baseball's still relatively new here in the long term and long scheme of things. And then hockey, you know, it's a niche sport, to be quite honest. Ovechkin did a great job of bringing my generation along, but for the most part, they were an also-ran compared to the Redskins.
That's right.
When they won, though, and when this team wins, it's unlike anything else in the city that can bring everyone together.
That's
essentially.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like, I look at the Orioles have gone through a similar thing where they were very good for a very long period of time, and then there's this kind of down, dysfunctional period for a long time recently. But when you go to that ballpark, you feel it. Like, you just feel the history of it. They also have, it's just a gem. So, like, they're very lucky that the building itself is just kind of so amazing, architecturally designed so well, has all these Baltimore elements. But they've done things there to remind you of the history of the franchise all over it. They've done things. That's what the next
They do
stadium
it every year, too. Like, they announced Nick Markakis is going into the Ring of Fame today. Like, they just constantly doing that.
The next stadium here needs to profile all of this. It needs to showcase why it is important. And it's so funny, like when Snyder and Jason Wright, and I'm sure, this ownership group is doing it too, where they tour around these beautiful places like SoFi or Minnesota's new stadium or Atlanta's new stadium, and they get a view of like, what does a modern stadium look like? I would also tell them, go to Lambeau Field. They modernized that. You're not going to build something that looks old like this, but they modernized it. Walk around in there.
Yep.
We're also the Packers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, those elements should be there. Like, do I want a beautiful modern stadium where everybody's comfortable and happy and all that stuff? Yes.
Yep.
Technologically modern and new? Yes. I want all those things too. But when I walk around those concourses, I want to feel like I'm transported into history with this team because we're one of those teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I would advise them, go there, walk around, you'll feel it.
Yep.
I always tell everybody, like, you want to see something amazing, go to Lambeau Field. Go see a game there. And it's not just because, like, you just feel this weird football energy, like you're in Mecca. Walk around their concourses. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went to Fenway Park recently with my son for opening day. Walk
Same
around
thing.
the concourses there. Like, yes, it's old. You can't replicate it. It's amazing. But they've done an incredible job of profiling the history of their franchise in a way that it just feels important.
Yep.
And that's what I hope they do. Like, we could build SoFi East, but if it feels like, I went there, it's beautiful, right? The stadium's amazing. We can't do some of the outdoor elements they have because it's LA, but it's beautiful. It's amazing. There ain't nothing in the concourses that are like, where you're like, oh, this is Rams history.
Yeah.
No, it's just a nice, modern stadium that's comfortable to go see a game. Like, I'd rather sit in there and watch Beyonce, frankly.
Right.
Because, like, it's just a great modern stadium. But there's nothing about it that you sit there and go, oh, this place is Rams Central. It isn't. So I hope we do both. And it sounds like they're thinking about it. This thing should profile how important this franchise has been. If you do that through a Hall of Fame or through the concourses, there's ways to go about that. And at the same time, have all the modern amenities that you're looking for.
Yep.
All right, let me take a quick break. Shawne Merriman's going to join us next. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Let's welcome in former Terp star, former NFL star, Shawne Merriman, who has become a frequent guest. I'm so glad that you are connected with us, Shawne, through the last couple of years. You've got a lot of stuff going on in your life. Thanks for coming back on today. I appreciate it.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Let's see. When we last had you on, you were promoting one of the Lights Out cards, and you had another one coming up, which I'll ask you about in a minute. But in the meantime, you've basically turned into an app at a media company, right? Lights Out Sports. You want to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, Lights Out Sports. In fact, we just launched on a lot of platforms, including Roku and Fire TV. You can download it now on your iOS or Android. A bunch of different platforms now. So we got a multi-sports, right? So not only will my Lights Out Extreme fights be live strictly on the app, but we also have World Poker Tour and Glory Kickboxing, and got really, really big media companies. Outdoor America, outdoor fishing, hunting. So we created a all sports platform, and we want to be the best and the biggest in this space. And so if you're looking for sports, Lights Out Sports is the way to go. You can download it on any major platform right now.
Obviously, like, it's crowded space. There's a lot of apps. There's a lot of platforms. There's behemoths in the space. How have you thought about competition and kind of carving out a niche for your group?
Well, the biggest thing is, I think, we all looked at the media rights right now, right? The NBA media rights, NFL media rights. That's a whole different ball game, right? So you try to stay out of that way. But there's a lot of niche sports. For example, we got motorsports in there, and drag racing and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of some of the other streaming services. I watch Pluto and Amazon Freeview, Hulu. I watch them all, but I watch them mostly for sitcoms. I don't just go there for sports. So there were very, very few things out there where you can just go for sports. You don't have to sift through 300 plus channels of everything else, right? So when you just want to see sports, you go to Lights Out Sports and it's all there.
Okay. And it's all focused live events, or are you trying to do programming as well?
Oh, yeah. So we'll have Lights Out Extreme Fight. We'll have live events. World Poker Tour will have live events. Another one cool that I got into just a couple years ago is chess. So Chess.com, they have a channel on my app as well, on Lights Out Sports, and they have these chess tournaments all over the world, which is just insane. So I don't know if you guys saw TNA Wrestling. I just did a pay-per-view a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
On TNA Wrestling. So TNA Wrestling also has a channel on Lights Out Sports. So we're covering all bases, man. We will, potentially be the number one in this space when you come to look at just a variety of the sports you're looking for. You want to go to Lights Out Sports for that.
All right. Sell me that chess is not boring to watch. I mean, come on. Tell me how is that excitable to watch, chess?
Man, it's so in these chess tournaments, they have like 20 people, and sometimes one person will bounce around to like 20 different tables. And you can see how fast these guys think. They will sit down for 5 seconds at each table.
What?
Make their move and go to the next one. And when you start to see people's brains operating that fast and can compete against 20 different people, I went to a chess tournament. I would have never thought in 1,000 years it would even pique my interest. And I sat there for 2 hours and watched. And I'm like, man, this is really cool. So, chess is on there, darts, cornhole, billiards. The really cool one is Outdoor America, which is your fishing, hunting, your outdoor sports. That one's really cool. So we hit all points. We wanted to make sure there was a variety of sports for everybody to see it.
You mentioned the wrestling appearance you made on TNA recently was with AJ Francis. He's a friend of the show as well. Obviously, you guys both played at Maryland as well. All right. Are you going into wrestling now, or was this just a one-off for you?
No, I don't think anything's ever a one-off with me. So I worked with WWE when they launched the WWE Network some years ago. I did some pay-per-views, hosted WrestleMania, hosted Monday Night Raws, Thursday Night SmackDowns on the broadcasting side. So I've been around the wrestling business for about 14 years now. And then TNA is great, man, because they're original. They're in 60-plus countries. And they get a chance to flip the script with my boy AJ there and clothesline his opponent behind the ref's back was pretty damn cool for me.
Yeah. But are you going to wrestle more, or are you just?
It's definitely possible. I would not count that out. Right. It's 100% possible.
With you and AJ, we were me and my producer Mike Callow were sitting here thinking you need a manager if you guys are going to be a tag team, and we want either Friedgen or Loxley to be your manager, since we could do the Terrible Terps. We could have you guys out there.
I'm taking Lox. Lox got that DC spirit with him. So if we get jumped, Lox might be the one to jump over the top rope to finish somebody off. So I'm going with Lox on that one.
All right. While we have you here, let me talk a little football with you. What do you make of Jaden Daniels, the new quarterback of the Washington Commanders? What would you make of that selection?
What's funny is the closer you get to the actual draft, all these things start to pop up, right? His elbow and this and that. And I'm like, first of all, you can't ever deny anybody's film, right? Their actual game film, what they've done on the field. And then when somebody going to put up great numbers, they look good in their individual workouts, all these things. So I never thought that pick was going to go anywhere else other than Daniels, right? So people – because I know, J.J. McCarthy popped up a little bit, and Drake May popped up. I'm like, God, this is the home run. This is the home run guy. This is your guy for the next 6, 10+ years, and somebody that desperately needed to come in that organization, because we all know you cannot win in the NFL without a franchise quarterback anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I was saying this for months here. I'm like, every time I watch him, I don't know how they're going to pick somebody else. They kept talking about Drake May or J.J. McCarthy, and I'm like, did you watch this guy play? How in the world are you going to make a decision to go a different direction other than him?
You know what? When all that talk pops up, it's a lot of posturing, right? You got teams that's trying to move up. You got teams that's trying to trade out, trying to get their guys so they might. Yeah, it was comical about the elbow, right? 2 weeks before the draft. Oh, look at his elbow. I'm like, come on, guys. I mean, this guy, this is an all-star of a player in college, looked great in his workouts, and all of a sudden, let's make a big deal about his elbow. So when those things happen, that there's just posturing, a lot of games and chess. We just talked about chess. There's a lot of chess being played behind closed doors in order for teams to get their guy.
You had to deal with, obviously, through your career, multifaceted quarterbacks like he is. What would your advice be to him? He clearly can run. He's a very good passer. He's going to have to figure out the balance of all of that on the fly in the NFL. What would your advice be to him to kind of figure out how to be an NFL quarterback with the skill set that he has?
I think this. You play to your strengths, and I'm just not a fan. If a guy can use his legs and hurt you equally, don't ever let that get to you mentally and say, oh, well, if I keep running and making these plays, they're going to call me a running quarterback. You know what? Go get that first down, right? Go get that. Go score. And the game will come to you. So I don't have a problem with, especially young guys when they're trying to learn. Go do what's best for the team. Go play to your strengths, and the game will slow down. You'll understand coverages and check downs. You'll understand packages and the defenses. You'll get that. That'll come to you. But if you can take off and go get your team a first down or a touchdown by using your legs, do it.
Okay, let me get your sense, too, just generally of what you think of the direction of the Commanders. New coach, new GM. They signed like 20 free agents. They have this brand new draft class. It's a whole new team. They brought in people like Bobby Wagner and Jeremy Chin here. Like, what's just your general sense of what's happened here so far?
Well, there's a lot of movements, and I'll tell you, when those movements happen, it started with Sweat and Chase being gone, right? When I saw that both of them left and not just one, I knew that this whole rebuilding, they were about to just shake things up big time when that happened. And so when you got the nucleus there, those guys that I just named, and you're still not winning, it is time to shake the tree. And that's exactly what they've done. They're shaking the tree. You bring in a Bobby Wagner because you need a general, you need experience on that field around this young talent. You in a sense, when you bring in guys like Bobby Wagner, you get a coach on the field. I'm not saying that he can't play anymore, but you got somebody that's going to show the young guys how to practice, how to prepare, how to be a pro, and you need guys like that in the locker room.
All right, let me ask you about our two main opponents in the NFC East, Dallas. What do you make of what they're doing? They keep saying they're all in, but they're losing players. They got their staff rated. They haven't extended Dak. What do you make of what Dallas is doing right now?
When you say, look, and I love personally have a great relationship with Jerry Jones and the Jones family in general. But you know, when you say all in, you give the perception that you're about to make some big moves. And in fact, they didn't make any this offseason. I mean, other than bringing in Zeke and a couple guys, more guys have left. Gallup, have left more than they've come in. What I took from that when they said all in is we're going to all in on Dak Prescott. We're about to give him 55 or 60 plus million a year. We're gonna extend CeeDee Lamb. We got Micah Parsons coming up that we got to pay a big contract to. They got some players on that team that's just going to require massive contracts. That's why they didn't make any moves this offseason.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, man, it's I never really been look, Dak is good. He's not great. He's not elite. He's going to give you a great regular season. But for somebody that's going to require $55 or $60 million a year to not get you in the postseason far, I mean, I can't put a stamp on that. I just can't do it.
How about Philadelphia? Like, what do you make of what they've done in the offseason so far?
Well, the biggest thing with Philly, you got a quarterback there in Jalen Hurts. I think they need to figure out where they went wrong at last year and the stretch of just them playing mediocre football. And I know they were winning some games, and I was very critical with them. I don't care how many games they won straight. They were barely beating teams that they should have stomped. And the way they went out, they really need to evaluate what's important in that team. I think a lot of people thought that the head coach was going to go after what happened last year. And in fact, if that happens again, he will be gone after this year. So the problem with Philly is when you're dominant, you're a much better team than everyone else. They were the best team in my opinion, in the division for the last couple of years. And I know, Dallas and everybody caught up. Everybody's catching up. You think the Commanders are going to have the same season that they have? No, they're going to be a much better team.
Yeah.
They're going to be a much better team. So when teams like Philly have the upper hand, those are your chances to get deep in the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl and do those things because the rest of the teams in your division, like the Commanders, they're going to catch up, and they already are.
Yeah. All right, last thing on the field. What did you think of Caleb Williams, and how do you kind of project him early in his NFL career as the number one pick?
A fellow DC guy, I try not to kick him too much, but I wouldn't want to be in his shoes because he has a uphill battle no matter how you look at it, right? Let's start from just the coming out of college, all the talk, and he's a this teammate, he's that. Okay, all the stuff he's done off the field and all the so he got to get past that part, walking into an NFL locker room where he's going to have to earn respect to people because nobody cared what you did at USC. especially the veterans. They don't care. The second part is they got rid of Justin Fields. So we all saw with Justin Fields, his improvement, how well he started playing towards the end of his tenure there in Chicago. So now he has to step in and outperform Justin Fields immediately. Because if he doesn't, the fans are going to be booing and calling for him to say, why did you get rid of Justin Fields and bring this guy in who can't perform? So he has an uphill battle. He has to come in and just be immaculate.
Yeah. All right, last thing before I let you go. You guys have another card, a Lights Out main event card on the 18th, which actually Preakness Day around here. What do you want to tell everybody about the fight card that night?
Yeah, we'll be have 19 fights starting at 6 p.m. Pacific. It'll be exclusively live on Lights Out Sports, which you can download on your Roku, your Samsung, your Vizio, Fire TV, Android, Apple. It's all there. We have 15 other great channels that we're launching with as well, all the poker and wrestling and outdoor fishing, hunting, motorsports. So, but yeah, tune in May 18th, Lights Out Sports. Make sure everybody download Lights Out Sports. Every week we'll have 3 to 5 new channels that's popping up, but this is your all go-to sports platform.
Shawne, it's a pleasure having you on again. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Thanks, Adam.
Shawne Merriman. Real quick before we go to break, there's reporting that the NFL Network, again, is like lopping off a lot of people, and Michael Irvin is the first that's gotten out publicly, so he's off of the NFL Network after being there for 15 to 20 years, something like that.
Yep.
I don't know what they're doing. This is really – Andrew Siciliano did a great job for them. He's just out. This morning show was a hit.
Yep.
They're moving it to L.A. They're being very secretive about who's going to be on it, what it's going to look like.
They're taking a whole pivot over,
A total pivot. Like, the main host, Jamie Erdahl, is going to be there. Kyle Brandt said he'd be a, quote, big part of it, but wouldn't say what.
Yep.
They're not saying who's going to be on with them. They're not even saying what the format's going to be. Obviously, they're changing their mind about total access through the day. Now, Michael Irvin, who was a huge part of their game day presentation, is off, and that one's a little complicated because he's had some ups and downs, especially in recent years, like what happened at that Marriott last year, whatever. They had to pull him off the air for a while, whatever that was. But, what are they doing? I can't. This is the behemoth sports operation in this country, and they're flipping around talent there and flipping around shows that don't seem to need to be, what are people upset about what they're producing? That's the weirdest part of the whole thing.
I think what's funny is they're scaling it back at a time where they probably shouldn't scale it back. I made the joke about the NFL Network. Remember when the NFL Network was first around? It was I don't even think they had a morning show. They had an afternoon show with Rich. But remember, it was all NFL film stuff.
Yeah.
And I always said, I kind of liked that. I wish it
was
on a different channel.
In the summer, you could watch all the preseason games, that type of stuff.
But also in the summer, too, they would have the NFL films, condensed 20-minute, 30-minute versions of games, and it was a great rerun thing to just throw on. Then they went to their live programming. Fine, modern era. Fine, pivot over if you want to compete with ESPN or whatever. But now you can't go back to that. We're in such a day and age of who cares about that Chiefs Ravens game from Week 8. I don't know what they're thinking, and that would also.
I don't either. I don't know what's going on.
That would
here.
also be a reinvestment in NFL films, and I don't think they have any interest in doing that.
There's another part of me that goes. And this happened with the Nationals and did not end up going. But when they started making some moves, it was clearing the decks for a sale.
Right.
Now the sale didn't happen. NFL has been tinkering with combining with ESPN, combining with Amazon. And maybe part of this is we're going to lop off a lot of salaries now so that whoever buys this isn't going to look at that on the bottom line as an expense. And that feels like might be what's happening here. So my guess is that might be what it is, that they have valuable properties. It doesn't make sense to do what they're doing unless they're about to announce some kind of partnership or they're being bought and they're going to be an ESPN property or a Fox property or a TNT property or an Amazon property. Yeah.
Disney, I think, is always
Yeah.
Because in your ESPN, your ABC.
Possibility.
You get all that. Yeah.
Maybe the NFL is buying ESPN. It could be the other way around, and they're going to move all of their talent into the NFL programming, and it's just redundant.
Right.
So something's happening here that does, because they're doing things that don't totally make sense. I was with Ted, I was I'm so happy you built that monumental network. I don't know how you're going to get the ROI. I hope you do. I'm rooting for it. I'm all for expansion in the media, but I don't get it from the expansion point of view, but I hope you're right. I want you to be right.
Yep.
Them contracting doesn't make any sense. Their stuff's successful. Why are you doing that? I'm betting there is some deal that's about to happen where they merge. That's what and it's redundant. So I bet you maybe it's ESPN is either buying or being bought by the NFL Network.
No,
something's happening
wouldn't
here.
Surprise me at all.